because no one does it better. We are Super FM.
Tired of the lies? Tired of the spin? Are you ready to hear the hard-hitting truth in a comprehensive, conservative, and principled fashion? Point Blank on Super FM 93.3 brings you all the news you need to know. Real conversations, real news, and one-on-one interviews with some of the most intriguing names in Rivers State, South Nigeria, and the country today. Unbiased analysis the way you wish still existed.
They're damaging the economy of the country. I'm not bothered about whether federal government is supporting us or not. Because if you cannot protect the lives of your people, then there's no governance.
From the news that dominates the headlines to the important topics below the fold, left, right, and center busts the opinion bubbles and echo chambers with genuine discussion and real talk.
Out of $500 million that President Goodluck Jonathan borrowed for Kano, Abuja, Kaduna. At the time I was speaking, we were paid over 100 and something million out of the $500 million.
Tune into Point Blank with Shegan Awolabi every Saturdays 8:15 a.m. on Super 93.3 FM. Point Blank, civilized yet provocative.
Hello and good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Point Blank on Super 93.3 FM Port Harcourt. Point Blank is a news and current affairs program, airs on this station on Saturdays from 8:15 a.m. And on Point Blank, we look at issues and we discuss all of these issues. We look at the stories behind the news and also bring in notable personalities into the studio to look at all of these issues and also give us a thorough analysis of happenings concerning all of these issues. And thank you so much for joining us this Saturday. Now, don't forget that you can be part of all of the discussion on Point Blank this Saturday live. Join us live. We're live on social media on Facebook. It is Facebook 93.3 FM on Facebook. You can watch us live. And also, we are also live on YouTube. On YouTube, it is Super FM PH. We're streaming live to YouTube. And also, you can listen to this station anywhere in the world. Follow us by downloading our global application on Play Store, Super FM Global. And also drop your comment at Super FM 93.3. Once again, greetings to you and thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we have a packed show as usual. First on the show this morning, we'll be looking at the issue of flooding and food security in Rivers State and by extension Nigeria. And we'll be looking at rural agricultural and the challenges as a result of huge flooding that is currently being witnessed in some rural communities. And we'll be asking ourselves, what is the way forward? And on the second leg of the show, recently, the Senate Ad-hoc Committee investigating oil stealing and oil theft visited some communities, some oil-producing communities in Rivers State. And according to the leader of that committee, Senator Bassi, said the revealing of the facts they found on ground is very disturbing, and they're challenging host communities to come to the rescue. So on Point Blank this morning, we'll be asking ourselves, what can host communities do to stop the stealing and the destruction of oil pipelines in their domain? You want to stay with us on that, and that will be starting by 9 o'clock. But immediately, we're looking at the issue of food security and flooding in rural communities, particularly in Rivers State. Discussing food security and flooding, there have been fears of shortages of agricultural produce in Rivers State and by extension Nigeria. And this is as a result of the torrential rainfall, which has led to flooding in some communities in Rivers State. Some rural communities in Rivers State are facing increasingly localized perennial flooding, and this is expected to last till about November this year. Here in Rivers State, the Nigeria Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has issued warning, but just like you know, the absence of substantive Commissioner for Environment in Rivers State is also affecting this situation. So, on Point Blank this morning, following reports that we have that many farmers are lamenting what they describe as the washing away of their crops, and some of them are embarking on quick harvesting of their premature products. What can we do to avoid shortages of agricultural produce in Rivers State? And I have with me two gentlemen. One of them is a well-known commentator, or would I say a guest always participating on our radio program. But apart from that, he is also a very prominent environmentalist, is always contributing to issues relating to environmental, particularly when it comes to issues relating to flooding on all of our show. And it's a great pleasure to welcome with us Uyemishak Silvanus is an environmentalist. I think he also works with the River State Water Corporation. Am I correct? You're a member actually.
Member of the board.
Member of the board. Uyemishak Silvanus, thank you so much for joining us on Point Blank this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And also joining us also to discuss the issue of flooding and food shortage in River State, particularly the washing away of agricultural produce by some farmers in the local areas of River State. We have Chisom Dike. Chisom Dike is a farmer and the president of the Association of Farmers and Food Processors in River State. Thank you so much, Chisom Dike, for joining us.
Thank you, Shegun. Good morning.
Fantastic. So we're going to begin the show. But first, I just wanted to listen to a beat that we have from the zonal coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency. Earlier in the week, we spoke to the zonal coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency, Godwin Tepico. And Godwin Tepico said to us that about 300 people have died so far as a result of the flooding experienced in part of this country. And he warned that in the coming days, this flooding will increase. And he said there are early warnings issued out to some communities, and one of them, so many of them are in River State. So just have a listen to this, and we come back discussing more with my guests.
Thank you for having me. Yes, you recall that in February, NIMET came up with their prediction, seasonal climate prediction for year 2022. And soon after that, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency also came up with their annual flood out. Several states and local governments are expected to be impacted. The Orashi region is one region that is expected to be impacted following that prediction. And the zonal office has been there, the four local government areas of the Orashi, to sensitize and ask the people to get ready in the event that they are flooding. That was done in conjunction with the local government council, where we invited relevant stakeholders, the CDC, the youth, the women group, to carry out this sensitization and advocacy. Yes, it's expected, because you also recall that on the 19th of this month, the general alerted the nation that 13 states are expected to be impacted by heavy flooding. This is arising from the fact that since the 13th of this month, the operators of the Lago Dam in Cameroon have started releasing their water. You know that the water will flow into River Benue, and also our inland water dams like the Kenji, like the Jeba Dam, have also started filling water. This is because of the high inundation as a result of the heavy rainfall that we have experienced in the north. So all these waters will come down the south and impact states in the south, especially as predicted by the annual flood outlook. Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, Cross River State, and Bayelsa, the Southern Office of Coverage will be impacted. So what we are doing, like I said, we have informed and sensitize the people about this impending flood that is coming. NEMA has started repositioning relief supplies across the zonal, territorial, and operational offices nationwide. Our search and rescue officers have been placed on standby, for search and rescue. Our motorized inflatable boats have also been deployed across the nation. So not just NEMA, because disaster management is everybody's business. So if NEMA is doing it, we expect that governments of these frontline states to also begin to move away communities at risk of this inundation, to help identify higher ground for evacuation of persons at risk. They should also begin to preposition their own adequate stockpiles of food and non-food items, provide potable water, hygiene, safety, and security to the people who will be evacuated, to enable them to have a fair level of comfort during the periods of displacement. We also want the media to assist us to also carry out the sensitization to the public, so that they will comply with this early warning alerts. Then the State Emergency Management Agency to begin to organize regular coordination meetings to prepare state level acts, for this prediction, so that all hands being on deck, the impact on the people will be mitigated as much as possible. The message is that they should heed this alert, and in the event that response agencies come to ask them to evacuate, they should evacuate. Because if they don't already, we have lost about 300 persons in Nigeria, about 500 others seriously injured, and over 100,000 who have been displaced. So it's important that since we have had this early warning, the public or those frontline local governments and communities should take it and respond when they are asked to evacuate. And again, farmers should begin to engage, unfortunately, in early harvest, so that they don't lose all their produce for this year.
Well, there you have it. And that was the voice of Godwin Tepika. We spoke to him earlier on the flooding that is happening and the effect on farm produce. And I'm quite excited that we have Meshack Uyi with us here. Of course, I did introduce Meshack Uyi earlier on. Apart from the fact that Meshack Uyi is a conservationist, is an environmental impact assessor of over 15 years, Meshack Uyi has also been involved in several research and some publications in the issue of environment. He is also a governing body, of course, we did say that, and he's also a field man. He's a member of the River State Technical Committee on the implementation of the SUIT report. Meshack Uyi was also a member of the River State COVID-19 Committee. And the big thing is that Meshack Uyi is actually from the Orashi region, which Godwin Tepika talked about, and that is one of the areas that we're having this huge challenge, and Godwin Tepika specifically mentioned that. Now, Meshack Uyi, again, how do you feel, particularly with this report coming from your region? You are a conservationist, you are an environmental man, and you are a field man. You've also seen all of this. Now, Godwin Tepika has just said that your area is one critical area. How do you feel about that?
Mixed feeling, if you ask me. Mixed feeling in the sense that, for once, NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, has magnanimously mentioned Ahoda West this time, especially the Orashi, as LGAs that will be affected by river flooding. In quotes, river flooding. I'm choosing my words carefully. Over time, it has been this generalization where they just dish out information, oh, River State, prepare for flood. And we don't know what kind of flood, where it's going to affect. But we've been on, you know how I have been, on this, Mr. Shegun. And like I said, mixed feeling in the fact that the agency, the Emergency Management Agency, the National Emergency Management Agency, has for once been able to now go to the specific by mentioning Ahoda West as one LGA that will be affected. But for the people of Ahoda West, it's especially the Orashi region, all the Orashi communities that, Orashi LGAs that border the Orashi River, it is no longer news. From 2012, it has been continuous annual flooding. Its flooding has been annual. Yes, that Orashi River has been flooding, but what we witnessed from 2012 to date is that not just farmlands, but this time communities, inhabitants, natural inhabitants, communities has now been forced to relocate every year. So we've been expecting it, albeit we didn't expect it will come this high, it will come this big this year, because from local resilience methods and intelligence monitoring, we've also been able to, we're monitoring to see that the flood level wouldn't have been what we are seeing today, as at this today, 23rd, of September. In fact, as I'm still getting calls, even up till in this studio, of information, people calling me to tell me the situation reports. The speed is unimaginable, and it can only be just one reason, not rainfall.
Fantastic. You said a whole lot of things, and I'm also glad to the fact that the Nigeria Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has alluded to the fact that the up of the Lado Dam in Cameroon could be a contributory factor. Before now, they used to deny this, but this time around they're coming again. For you, does that show anything?
Shegun, and this is where I get worried. Like I said, mixed feeling. I get worried. Shegun, there is an automated flood early warning system installed near my community at Odiobo. Odiobo is just by my community, close to Mbiama. That automated system is for the purpose of monitoring flood levels, and it's actually on the net. Yeah, it's supposed to be connected satellite imagery and then monitoring to feed data on the spot data, institute data on the situation of flood level of water in the Orashi. But Segun, that system, that flood early warning system was installed in 2018. Segun, that same 2018, that flood early warning system was itself covered by flood. Segun, as I speak with you right now, that flood early warning system has broken down. And you ask me, how do they now get data? I mean, credible data that they now feed us, that they now rely to give people information. This is my worry. And then, some of us have been talking. You also know that the rainfall for this year has been minimal. Has been minimal. And then, just this week, in fact, few days ago, the water that has been released from the Lagdo Dam that he talked about, which is true, correct, is now getting here. And the speed alone, even without rainfall, the Orashi is almost busting its banks as I speak. In fact, it has busted its bank at some certain areas. Farmlands are already gone. We are now waiting. Some communities are now waiting to evacuate from their homes. That's just what they are waiting for now. It's, like I said, it's been recurrent. And I'm just surprised that an agency, we have NISA, Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, who, is saddled with primary responsibility is to give accurate data with regards to the river system and the hydrological systems, that is river and its functions and uses. That NISA is not able to pick up this information. And then NEMA relies on data from NISA for its planning. And yet, I don't know how NEMA is really getting its information. Segun, I'm worried because data from NISA is what institutions, what government use for their planning and research. And this flood data is what we are relying on. NEMA don't even know how many communities is in Ahoda West, how the population of each community in Ahoda West that is going to be affected. They don't even know. There's not even post-disaster needs assessment of every flood.
Why you're
how
very
do they
correct.
Prepare?
You're fantastic. Why you're very, very correct. Again, we don't have the NEMA man in the studio. But again, for us, we are also looking at the relevant institutions and agencies that we should have on ground here in River State. River State is not the only state in the country. For example, I know for sure that about 27 states out of the 36 states in the country are currently suffering of flooding. And according to the Nigerian water engineers, they've even warned that the flooding may increase from now till the end of the year. Again, that brings us to the issue of the relevant institutions. Yeah. Lagos State, for example, is trying to tackle the situation they are facing. Right now, we have the farmers. The farmers are crying in River State. And of course, I'll be talking to the president of the Farmers Association, who is with us in the studio. For you, who is an expert, for you, who is an indigene of one of the communities already challenged,
I'm from Odeke.
How do you view the absence of the relevant agency? This is not, again, to castigate anybody, and this is not to paint anybody in black, but we know, for example, in River State, we don't have a commissioner for environment, even a permanent secretary, minister of environment. I'm not sure that exists as well.
Segun, that's true. And it's having a huge toll on Orashi people. Segun, in fact, I see the release of water from Lagdo Dam, especially late anytime the Cameroonian authority deems it fit, as an ecological war against Nigeria. There is an arrangement, Nigerian Cameroon Basin Authority, where there is this pact, an arrangement, an agreement that before Cameroon or any of the countries upstream releases water from these dams, because Nigeria is the emptying point, and Niger Delta is at the bottom of it. Before these countries, especially Cameroon, releases water from a Lagdo Dam, Nigeria should be pre-informed, and this dam should be opened quite on time, so that the speed, the current, the water, the volume of water will not be too high that will cause this massive havoc. Now, Cameroon, like you said, just released water on the 13th of this month. And Taraba and Sokoto, so many of these states.
Actually, many of these communities are washed.
Yes, are already feeling the heat. And then what do you expect the buffer dams that are up north, the Shiroro, Kenji, and all that, and the other buffer dams to do? They would naturally open it as well, open it wide. And what do you see here? Because there's no buffer dam in all of Niger Delta, in all of the south, in all of Niger Delta, the one in Delta states, they are trying to build, but it has not gone anywhere. So there's no buffer dam here to cushion the effect. So we receive it in full force. And so there is first of all, Nigerian government is not living up to its responsibility. It's an ecological war Cameroon deploys against the people.
Yeah.
Now, the states, as Rivers State, like you've noted, yes, people. I have argued. I've given them the benefit of doubt. All this while, Shegun, that I have been saying, whether there is a state emergency management agency or not, that the state ought to be responsible to its citizens. But they failed over time. There is a department of flooding and erosion control in the Rivers State Ministry of Environment. Are they living up to their responsibility? No. Now, if you say you don't want to even set up that agency. Now, the state has failed in itself, on its own. If the federal government has abandoned the people of Orashi,
what about the states? What about the local governments?
Why can't you pick up the responsibility as a state to show the federal government that you're not going to abandon your own? Because the magnitude of what is happening is beyond the local government. It's beyond Ahoda West local government to carry.
But again, there are some things that the local government can do and should do.
Providing of information.
Yeah.
Well, providing of information, giving accurate data as per the people that were affected, the people that are affected, the quantity, the quantum of the damage to the relevant agencies, including government. You understand? And providing maybe relief sports where people can.
Fantastic. We'll talk about that because you see there are a whole lot of things to talk about, and the question is, what should we begin to do? Because
of course,
from the expert, this flooding may last till November this year. And if you
like in 2019, the flood lasted up to December because the Lagdo Dam was released late and was left to run for up to that November second week, which has never happened. We pray it doesn't happen this time.
Well, fantastic. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Point Blank coming to you from Super 93.3 FM Port Harcourt. There are already fears that farm produce may be scarce this year as a result of flooding, huge flooding that is ravaging some farming communities, River State inclusive, and not only River State, but of course in about 27 states of the 36 states of the country. Already, farmers in River State are embarking on premature harvesting of their produce, and for some, they've lost almost all of their produce to the flooding. And again, the question we are asking is, why are we acting so late? How come we don't have the relevant information? What can we begin to do now? Of course, the issue of flooding is a national issue that requires the attention of all tiers of government, that is federal, state, and local government. And in the state of River State, what are we doing? How are we helping farmers to ensure that some of our food-producing communities can go ahead and produce food and they don't suffer losses as a result of this heavy flooding? And I'm talking to two gentlemen. I'm talking to one, an environmentalist who is also a conservationist and is also from one of the communities impacted heavily by flooding. I'm talking about Mishak Uyi, who is with us in the studio. And also I have with us in the studio Chisom Dike, who is a farmer and the president of the Association of Farmers and Food Processors in River State. Again, Chisom, let me just come to you before we go to the telephone lines because we have a lot of people already calling us. You heard NEMA, the zonal coordinator of NEMA, Godwin Tepiko, in that one. He said farmers need to begin to do something. Again, the question that comes to my mind is, what should farmers begin to do? Again, and again, how prepared are members of your association, following what we are seeing right now?
Unfortunately, we are not prepared. But first of all, I'm marveled at what Mishak said concerning the environment, because we as farmers are not environmentalists, although we are part of the environment. I'm outraged at what he's explaining, because it's much more than what we've been thinking about. Oh, well, for farmers, it's been a whole lot of issues for us. In fact, it's been series upon series of issues. Last year, we experienced similar. 2019, we did experience similar. So the flood, both the flash flooding and the flood from the river, the Cameroon River, is really, really affecting our crops. You know, like when you talk about flood, first thing it does to us is to wash away our soils, the topsoil. And you know, the topsoil is where we get all the nutrients. So it washes away our crops as well. Then for those in livestock, oh my God, it takes away, either you're losing your livestock, even when they remain, they become infected due to the pathogens in the flood water flowing around your farm. I can give you a specific example. This is just happening right now. I could bring up pictures for you. Right now, within the boundaries in Oyibo local government, between the village called Umabai and Akwete, there's the Imo River around that area. It's flooding out, and then it's washing away some people's natural fish pond.
Wow.
You know, people build a natural fish pond, and when the water comes, it flushes away the whole fish.
You know, again, just like I said, this is not only happening in River State. I think in one of the northern states, we saw a situation like that where the whole farm is washed off, crops, seedlings washed off. But again, the government came in and assisted. We've seen government producing, giving them a form of loan to go back to farming, and government giving them sort of palliative. Now, what assistance are you receiving? For example, the Ministry of Agriculture in River State, are they giving you any form of assistance following what you're going through?
For now, none. When we, not just the ministry, in the local governments, you have agri-extension workers. But
okay.
If you go into the local governments, ask for one, you will not see, you will not find them. You don't know where they are. They don't come around to inspect and advise. In fact, there's a lot of issues with sensitization of what is going on. Apart from what we're hearing on radio, people are not aware. And when the man from NEMA says early information, it's not early. We're just hearing it, and we're already on it.
But again,
we're already experiencing it.
Is government fine? They may not give you anything. Are they even showing empathy at all? Do they even know what's going on? Are they aware? Have they come to you to say, okay, we know what is going on and we're giving you advice?
The closest people to the rural farmer are the agri-extension workers in the local government. If we don't see them, how much more from the state or from the federal government? We're not getting any one of them. We're not receiving any informations. We're not getting any palliatives or incentives. On our recent discussion, we were trying to talk about it, and we said, how come the government is subsidizing fuel and all the rest, and nothing being done for agriculture, which is the main hub, which provides food to the whole country? We're not getting any informations, no aid, no incentives, nothing coming our way.
Okay, now that's quite disturbing. But again, we just want you to stay with us. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Point Blank, coming to you from Super 93.3 FM Port Harcourt, and we're looking at the issue of flooding happening now. River State is not the only state affected. About 27 states, according to the Nigeria Emergency Management Agency and other agencies, they've indicated to us that about 300 people are dead, and some of those are injured as a result of flooding. But our concern is on the issue of food security in River State and what is happening in some communities already impacted. For example, we know that farmers in some food producing communities in River State are lamenting. Some of them are already embarking on premature harvesting of their agricultural produce, and some of them are saying that many of their produce are already washed off. And one of the reasons is the opening of the Lado Dam, and we're looking what has government done. What are the various agencies in River State doing? What can the local government do? And how can the farmers themselves help? And we're speaking to two gentlemen in the studio. Meshach Uyi is a very good friend of ours and a regular on this radio station, but he's a conservationist. He's an environmental manager, and he's been involved in several projects in the area of environment. And also, he is from one of the impacted communities in Orashi region, and he's speaking to us this morning. Chisom Dike is also a farmer, and he is the president of the Association of Farmers and Food Processors in River State, and we're looking at all of these. Now, quickly, we'll throw open the telephone line. We'll just take a couple of calls, and we'll come back to the studio speaking more to this gentleman. And the numbers to call 070-507-91021 and 081-174-31021. And the question is, what can we begin to do so that we do not lose our agricultural produce to the flooding. Good morning and thank you so much for joining us. This is Point Blank.
Hello, good morning, Pastor Comrade.
Thank you so much, comrade.
My name is Otiasa Christian Livingston.
Otiasa, good morning and thank you for joining us.
So let me greet your guest in the studio. And let me thank you for doing this UN Secretary General's work. That is work that does not deserve any thanks for Rivers people. Let me thank the guests in the studio that for the first time we are beginning to hear uncensored remarks from most of them. Shegun, in February, early February, I monitored the river, the lower fringes of the Orashi. Let me bring it to the plain language. I took samples from Indiama, down to Zochi, down to Ogonokom, down to the Sombrero River estuary. Shegun, in August again, I went there and repeated that very dangerous experience. I took water samples, I took sediment samples, I took fish samples. Shegun, the analysis is out. I observed with my eyes. Shegun, on the Orashi zone, up to the point you have the two army stations, you see shins of spilled oil. The shins are floating in a mass, and they are of anthropogenic and petrogenic nature, meaning they come from recent petroleum activities, probably illegal. So you know that in the area space of River State, there is this soot thing. They come down, all come to the earth. Now, when there is flooding, you see that these things go up to the land. Now, even the plants do what they call uptake. They take these pollutants, they take these poisons. So whether they harvest it early or whatsoever, consequences are there. So the people in the state have been able to tell you that the need for SEMA, State Emergency Management Authority or Agency, is inevitable. It has been denied over the years, but it is inevitable. Today they have stated it. So they have also told you, and you also know, that relevant ministries do not have their political leadership that will have some of unfettered access to the governor. Some do not even have a permanent secretary, just people acting on their basis. And by the nature and character of the government, where even a sitting commissioner can be removed by doing the right thing, these people are already afraid to inform the necessary authority. In the Ministry of in the Environment and even related ministries, there are very fresh, brilliant heads, but they are sheep without shepherds, so they will not do anything. Now, nobody is coordinating the disaster risk needs of the state and feeding or liaising with the NEMA or the National Disaster Risk Management. Now, NEMA is coming to do ordinarily what they shouldn't do. And if they must do something, they need to do in partnership with SEMA. So nobody understands your house better than you are. There is also what we call ethnographic nature, how the village people know their environment. So it is no longer news that periods of this nature, Orashi region will be flooded. So you are hearing just the Orashi region and you're hearing Aoda, Onelga and all that. There is a particular people called Odwell.
Okay.
Kogbo, Odwell. So they have potentials to feed River State. You will recall recently there was cholera. Cholera is a waterborne disease. Nobody asked questions. So we're talking about flooding is a broken record. It is bitter in the mouth. So until we get these things, we should not shift the blame. The relationship between the hydrologic agency and NEMA is known.
Okay.
So people should ask the right questions, and that is why we are saying that as the election season approaches, candidates should be able to espouse their policies and programs. Rivers people should be able to interrogate it.
Okay.
So if you think that the whole of Orashi people do not matter to you, and let me also tell you, the Orashi River, when it overflows, there's something we call intrusion. It intrudes to even my village. And you think that all of this, their health is not important to you, then you are not fit to govern River State.
What Christian
So it is important that we begin to interrogate this because we are tired of talking. There is nothing you suggest that will be actioned upon. Today you have Professor Mom, Chinedu Mom, in the Ministry of Education. I am not saying he's not competent. He's a disaster risk expert. Deploying him, even if it's to borrow him and set up an interministerial committee. He is pragmatic. He will be able to reach the governor, so that we don't dwell on politics and forget about governance and the health of other persons. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Christian Otesa. And of course, we allowed Christian Otesa because he's also an environmentalist, and he has raised some very vital points, and many of them hinged on the absence of the relevant institution, absence of the relevant agencies, and of course, absence of data, which is very critical. And I know that Mishaku, you will want to talk about that. You're already hitching to talk about that. But quickly, let me just take one more call. Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Point Blank on Super FM. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, the guest in the studio.
Thank you so much. What's your name and where are you calling, sir? Where are you calling from, Ra?
Thank you very much. This is Fred Michael calling from Nkoro.
Fred, good morning.
Thank you very much this morning. I want to talk about the flooding.
Yes.
In the state, especially River State. Please, before the information of the flooding, they have already passed, FEMA has already passed information to the state, all the affected states. And the governors of the state, the affected states, should rise up, please, to accommodate people, those affected people, those people that the water will affect. Please, they should find solution where they accommodate these people. They should make it do it to time. Thank you very much. That's my contribution this morning.
Well, thank you so much. But again, let me come back to Uyi Mishaku. We'll come to the telephone lines again. We don't want to sound as a broken record, and we don't want to sound repetitive. Again, you have said to us that we need to have the relevant institutions and we need to have the relevant data. Not that River State is the only state affected, but again, some other states are doing something. And they're doing something visible from, for example, I just quoted some states in the north where they are giving assistance to farmers. I said something concerning Lagos. Lagos is already discussing big time what they are facing. For you as an environmentalist, and also for you who is from an area impacted, what do you think we can begin to do right now? Again, just like our earlier caller said, Otiasa Christian, we shouldn't play politics with this.
Shegu, what we can do now is rescue, recovery, resettlement.
Perhaps you want to expatiate more on that.
Rescue, because the flood is already there. Mm. Rescue the people that are caught up in the flood, recover, the little that will remain, activities that will recover, activities that will help in resettlement, which is post-disaster needs assessment.
But again, I'm very sorry.
Because already the flood is here. So there is nothing. There is no drain in Ahoda West that is blocked, that is causing flood. So nobody should even...
Okay. But I don't want to situate alone on Ahoda West. But what I'm trying to say is this. I also know that there are some special funds that come from agencies ecological funds. Again, the question is, where are those funds deployed to? And I know you should know about all of this.
Yes, I'm coming to that. A people, the Orashi is made up of 4 local governments. Mm-hmm. Ahoda West, Oba Ibe Mandoni, Abu Adua, and Ahoda East. Mm-hmm. The most heavily impacted is Ahoda West, Abua, and then Oba Ibe Mandoni, and then the least impacted is Ahoda East. Onelga is the gateway. It flows down to Ahoda West, which a section of the people are complete, the Engenes, the entire Engene. Ahoda West is made up of 2 ethnic groupings. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Sorry to my Odua people, to Bogolo people, you could say 3. But we distinctly 2. The entire Ogbogolo, the entire Engene are by the Orashi. Mm-hmm. And this flood affects all communities, all communities, no one spared in of the Ngene. All. And that is how devastating it is. Now, for the Ekpeye communities along the Orashi, you could say 50% of the Ekpeye-speaking communities are also along the Orashi. They are also affected. The Abua, like Dr. Christian Osuasa has mentioned, part of them are also affected, and then part of the Akhuda is. Now, Segun, the thing is this. The flood is already there. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the only thing that can be done now, because like I told you, people are calling me to say, please send help, send canoe, send boats that could help them move, their harvested premature, so that they can even go and harvest their premature crops. Mm. They don't even have the canoe. They don't even have the boats to go there and harvest, because, in fact, they are understaffed. The hands to even do that is. People are devastated. It's devastating. It's just
so again, what is the solution now?
The solution is
why
this.
Are we not releasing these funds that are supposed to cater for all these ecological disasters?
Our House of Assembly members, in these 4 local governments, including my own House of Assembly member, is not saying anything.
Are they even aware?
Why won't they be aware? Is they not their community? If they are not aware, then it's an indictment on them. You understand? It's an indictment for an Onega lawmaker to say that he's not aware of the flooding, for an Ahoda West lawmaker representing me, including from federal, that is the senator, House of Rep, House of Assembly, even councillors, to say they are not aware, then it's a serious indictment. There is an ecological fund meant for this situation. Where is it? Now, if the Rivers State government is saying, opacity of fund because of so many projects, we can't give attention to the Akhuda West. What happened to the ecological fund, for goodness sake? If the the state government say they cannot help Onega, they cannot help Akhuda East, they cannot help Abu Adua, what happened to the ecological funds? From the House of Assembly to the House of Rep and Senate, what happens to the ecological fund? We are asking question. Our people, Segun, Orashi regions, Orashi people have never recovered from the 2012 flood. Every year, once you plant, before you harvest, the flood come and roll back all the gains. Sure. It has been recurrent. In fact, Segun, there is poverty. Go to Mbiama as I speak. Go and see premature crops. Just go and see premature crops, banana, plantain, and all the rest. Go and see them displayed, being sold. Go and see them there. Go and see them. And this is, especially the Akhuda West, was noted in, especially my area. We were the largest producers of banana in South, if not Nigeria, I must tell you, in commercial quantity. But Segun, this flood doesn't allow plantain and banana to grow and mature.
And you raise a very critical question here, which for me, it's really very disturbing. What are the lawmakers doing? You have the representative of the people in the various lawmaking organs.
Yes.
What are they doing? And what are they saying? And this is critical at this point.
Let's even say the governor is not aware, which I'm quite surprised. Because this news is on the air.
Yeah.
And his aides should be able to call his attention to it. In fact, he himself should be able to pick up these informations on his own, and frown seriously that his aides are not giving him this information on time. Like I said again, I've never denied the importance and the necessity of a state management, emergency management agency. No. Yeah. But Segun, it does not detract from the fact that because there's no state emergency management agency, the states, the local government, the Ministry of Environment, in fact, the Department of Flood and Erosion Control should not live it up to its expectation. Does it mean that they should not do their bit? No.
Well, Misha, I will come back to you there. But again, let me come to the farmers. And we're talking about the president of the Association of Farmers and Food Processors of Rivers State. Again, a lot of people would also say again that shouldn't farmers have what we call a flood or a farm flood plan? I mean, you know that this is perennial. He has just told us the situation in the Orashi axis, which should be the food basket for Rivers State. Again, don't you have a farmer's flood plan?
Yes, we do, but it's not adequate. We can't do it all alone.
When you say it's not adequate, tell us about that.
For farmers, for proper farmers, first plan we do is, first of all, have a proper drainage plan in your farm. And then we do what we call pruning as it grows. And then the third step you take is having a cover, which is like a greenhouse and all of that. But these are cost effective, very, very cost effective. It will be difficult for a rural farmer in, like it says, Orashi area, to have a proper drainage system, which will involve a lot of construction. But ideally, when we plan to do things called mulching and planting with heaps and beds, just to allow the water flow through the corners of your farm. But like I was saying earlier, the impact of the flood to the farmers is really devastating, and it's going to affect food production and food costs.
But do we also have a sort of insurance as a contingent plan? Is there anything amongst the Farmers Association?
Yes, you have the agricultural insurances, but it's like I said, it involves a lot of money. And you know, the average farmer is not well enlightened.
Subsistence farmers, yes.
They're subsistence farmers, and they are not. These informations are not readily available. It's only available to people who go the extra mile to check out for this. But there's agricultural insurance that you could use. But like I say, you know the bottleneck concerning insurance. By the time you get all this sorted out, it could be the next year.
Well, fantastic. You're tuned to Point Blank, coming to you from Super 93.3 FM Port Harcourt. The flooding this year has been devastating, as farmers in Rivers State are already lamenting. Many of them are complaining that their products and farm produce cannot get to maturing stage, and they're hurriedly harvesting some of these product immature. And of course, as a result of the flooding, many of the farms are even inaccessible as we speak. So many farmers have also lost their entire farm produce. The question we are asking this morning is, there should be relevant agencies assisting the farmers. What are these agencies doing? Again, is it a report, or is it a result or a situation of negligence by the farmers themselves? Do they know about all of this warning? And we're also asking, what is the state's, the local governments, and also the federal government doing? Well, in the case of Rivers State, we're talking about the state and the local government, and that's what we're looking at this morning. And I've been talking to two gentlemen. I've been talking to Mishak, who is a conservationist and also an environmental manager. He's from the Orashi region, which is highly devastated right now. And Chisom DK, who is the president of the Association of Farmers and Food Processors in Rivers State. We've been talking to them. I'm going to take some more calls before I come back to the guests in the studio. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Point Blank.
Morning, Comrade Chairman.
Good morning, sir.
My name is Chief Comrade Ian Briggs.
Chief Comrade Ian Briggs, thank you for joining us.
Good morning to the guests in the studio. Yes, now from Okake, Indiama, Akenema, if you are really making your specification within that houses, Chairman, I have taken time to take sample within that houses. And also the fish, we have taken sample. And for me, the government of the state and the school government is not doing anything. And whereby there is a situation like this, and the government are not challenged, NOSRA are not challenged to it, is the state government that will take NOSRA on their tool. The local government will always feed the state government, and the state government will take it to NOSRA, and the NOSRA will not take it to the government. And something urgently can be done. But in these circumstances, the governor of Rivers State is nonchalant going about political issues. He's talking about his gladiator and here and there. If the way he's going about his gladiators, if that is the way he goes about this flood, I think something reasonable should have been done. But for my own take is that the people within that local government, the farmers, they have association. their association should take it up to the National Assembly, because even the State Assembly has failed us. So they should take their destiny upon their hands and get to the National Assembly and put it to them that this is their predicament. And I think help and succor will come from that angle. Thank you, Shegun.
Well, thank you so much, Chukwueze, and again, challenging the farmers to take this further, and how possible is that? We'll be looking at that to something. Let me just take this. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
This is Point
Mr. Zion, good morning to you.
Mr. Zion, good morning.
In this Niger Delta region, we talk too much.
Yeah.
We know too much, and we are doing nothing. Analysis here, sample test here, sample test there. What have they done? What have they put into action to deal with this issue of flooding since 2012? When the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan administration awarded contract for the dredging of River Niger, how many of these sample testers went to the River Niger and asked who are the contractors of this project? And what was the essence of that project? Was it not to deal with this issue of flooding? Our rivers, our lakes, our canals and channels are all shallow. They can no longer accommodate the flood water that will be coming from wherever. They can no longer pass any way to the ocean anymore. They need distilling, dredging. That was why Goodluck Jonathan awarded that contract. How many of these professors, organizations, groups have asked, you those contractors, did they carry out that contract? Was it executed? My name is Mr. Zion. Now, one thing I don't like in my life is hypocrisy.
Okay.
I like speaking it the way it is. Yes. Until we, the sons and daughters from this Niger Delta, should ask who are the contractors to that project. Because based on my notice, some of those contracts were awarded and they were not executed.
All right.
And
thank you so much,
Mr.
Zion.
So
Thank
I
you.
think the beginning is to look the contractors. We should leave the state government. This attack on River State government is getting too much. What about Bayelsa? If Bayelsa is not flooded, is Delta State not flooded?
All right, Mr. Zion, thank you so much.
Governors?
Thank you so much. Again, Mr. Zion, we are not denying the fact. Now, if you had listened to us at the beginning of this program, we acknowledge that the situation is going on in about 27 states. But again, we are concerned about our state. We want to see feasible actions. What are the actions? And I did say in some of those states, we know what the state government is doing. And also, we know what Lagos State is doing. We know what some northern state government is doing, particularly as it has to do with food security. And our big concern is that some of these communities involved in agriculture and responsible for the agricultural produce of the state are suffering, and farmers are hurriedly harvesting their crops. And again, that's a concern. So we are all looking at, okay, so what is being done? What are the actions? Not to castigate anyone anyway. Let's just take this one last call. Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Point Blank. Hello.
Yeah, good morning, Shegun.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, my name is Comrade Letambari Sunday, President, the Time and Tone for River Southeast.
Good morning.
Yes. I greet your guest in the studio. Yeah. It has been long I hear this statement or English called, what's it called? Ecological forms. Mm-hmm. Because it sounds strange. Because things are not, the way the state governors or the state government, particularly in River State, the way they handle ecological problem in the state, it looks to me that federal government has nothing, no contribution towards that angle. If we look at all the budgets they've been making in the states, they will talk about shore protection and all that. I thought that some of these budgets goes to some of these areas who will suffer these things in future. But you will be surprised that they will be going to flag up other projects, leaving these areas that will be flooded in future, mostly in the wet summer. You see, when the governor will go and will buy clothes for somebody, you will do flag up. Why not do flag up for some of these projects, some of these areas that are lacking behind? that will know in a summer like this, they will have this kind of problem. The problem we have is leadership.
Okay.
That is just the problem. So if we can be able to look at, now that we are entering another political era, we can look at people who have this mindset, who think wisely towards its people. Things can be better. My brother, I'm sorry, it is very disheartening to hear you talking this way. I pity our people who are suffering at that region.
Thank you so much, Comrade Letambara Sunday. Thank you so much. And gentlemen, we're just beginning to round up this segment of the shows this morning. And I'm going to ask Meshach Uyi, again, just to re-emphasize, based on what Mr. Zion said, we are not castigating anybody. This is a problem, and this is a problem we must face as people. But again, just like the last caller said, there are people in leadership positions, so we should be able to see some leadership in this area. And that's what I think one or two persons have asked for concerning this. But again, moving forward, because from what Nema said, we will experience this till about the end of the year and perhaps till December. So he has said to us that we need to begin to move people up. We need to begin to encourage farmers. We need to embark on dissemination and information, particularly in this area. Within the short time we have, how possible is that, and how can we rapidly achieve that?
Well, Shegun, like I said, anything that has to be done now is almost late. And the effort, like I said, is to help the farmers to recover their flooded crops the little they can. Because they don't even have the means to get to their farms. Some of them don't even have the means to get to their farms to recover their crops. So that is the most urgent need. And then the second is how to store whatever they've harvested so that they don't finish it before time. And Shegun, because after every flood, you hear silence. People shout during flood, but after the flood, their voice is gone. You know why? Because not just the flood, but the devastating effect left them speechless. And when you are going to expect, I want to appeal, if you are preparing to celebrate the Yuletide, please have the Orashi people in mind, because they'll already be facing hunger during that time. Shegun, the next thing the government can also do, including the National Emergency Management Agency, collaboration with states and authorities, they should do a post-disaster needs assessment of every flood. Let's know what the effect has been and see it's never been done. It's only in the 2012 flood that a post-disaster needs assessment was done. Even though that flood was blamed on rainfall and community, none of the Orashi communities were mentioned in that 2012 post-disaster needs assessment is here. The report is there on air. Anybody that can Google it, post-disaster needs assessment of 2012 flood. If you Google it, you see. Go through that document. That document, no Rivers person, no Rivers authority, no Rivers official contributed to any data to that post-disaster needs assessment. Nobody. Okay. So, Shegun, what I'm saying here is post-disaster needs assessment be done. People can be granted soft loans to see how they can fall back. It's difficult. Now, because before you know, somebody will say, oh, people now carry some 5 stems of cassava, to go and give communities, and they snap pictures to say, oh, they've distributed. That's what the emergency management agency did, and they say they've relieved it. That is completely inadequate. What we are dealing here is emergency. It's not about protocol. Emergency. We are in emergency, please.
Meshach Uyi, let's just leave it at that. And of course, let me just come to you, Chisom Dike. Maybe in 2 minutes, just want to sum it up. What are you telling the farmers now?
Yeah, Shegun, I first advise the public we should get ready for a cost of food going higher in this period, because after the flood becomes the main issue. We're beginning to harvest our crop before time. So where are we going to store it? No storage facilities available, and then you're not going to have crops grow all through the year. So while we prepare for the Yuletide, we should expect the cost of food going higher and higher on a daily basis. And then secondly, the government, we're expecting that, in fact, the farmers were disappointed. We're just not in the 3 tiers of government, both the local government, the state, and the federal government. We will start from the local government first of all. When you go to a local government, you don't get an agric extension office. You can't even talk to, no one to talk to. to pass on your information. No information is getting to us as farmers. So all of this and the flood issue is really going to make things difficult for us in this 2022.
Well, we must thank you, gentlemen, and I must sincerely thank you, Mishak Uyi. Mishak Uyi is a conservationist. He is an environmental impact assessor of over 15 years. Thank you so much for coming to Point Blank this Saturday.
Thank you.
And also, I must thank you, Chisam DK, a farmer and the president of the Association of Farmers and Food Processors in River State. Thank you, Chisam DK, for coming to Point Blank.
Thank you, Shehu.
You're listening to Point Blank, coming to you from Super 93.3 FM Port Harcourt. We'll be going on a short break. On our second segment of the show, the Senate Ad hoc Committee investigating oil lifting, theft, and impact of petroleum products in Nigeria recently concluded its visit to River State. The committee, headed by Senator Bassi, at the conclusion of the oversight visit to several oil installations in River State, said there is need